Okay, again, welcome to our Tuesday night Zoom session. Uh, any brand new officials to the association? If you haven't sent me your name and send me a text. So I've got your contact information. Go ahead and do that. Uh, that way, we'll make sure that we're in contact through the course of the season, preparing for the season, and anything that comes up in amongst all that. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about test strategies. We'll talk a little bit about putting blocks in Dragonfly. Okay, so one of the first things you need to make sure that you do now that you're in Dragonfly is put your picture in there. On Sunday night, now I'll mention this again at the end of the meeting, we'd like for y'all to try to stay for about 30 more minutes at the end of the meeting. Jason has been on vacation out in California. He'll be back. He needs to know who y'all are. Tracy needs to know who y'all are. I haven't put y'all's faces and names together yet, so that'd be good for me to see y'all too. But it's real important to get your picture there in Dragonfly. That way, as we start assigning games, we like to know who we have on the crew and do those introductions and things like that. So put a picture in there right now, a picture of you. Some people put in Mickey Mouse and junk like that. That really defeats the purpose. So get a good picture in there. Okay. So on that home page there in Dragonfly, this says I'm 86% completed. And part of that was because I hadn't, it says complete your registration. And what that's going to show you is I hadn't taken the test yet. So that pops in there automatically. So you just click on that and then it'll take you right into the test. Okay, you need to get an 80% on it. And you get 3 attempts to do that. The first attempt, you're welcome to do that on your own. You don't have to do it on your own, but you're welcome to do that. Second attempt, if you didn't get an 80% the first time, make sure you got somebody on standby to answer any questions for you. I can be available depending on when you do it. Just make sure you got somebody that can walk you through some of these test questions. If you have to do a third one, we're going to have somebody sit with you when you're doing the test. So don't feel bad about that. Don't feel embarrassed about that. We're all in this thing together. It's important for you to get the test under your belt because then that's when we can start getting you out on the field. So you get a whole lot more learning done out there, but you've got to get that test under your belt. So we'll have somebody sit there with you and help you through that. It's an open book test. There's 50 questions, 55 questions. Something different that they did this year is to have 50 questions and then 5 videos. Now, the thing is, you really don't have to watch those videos, but the videos kind of help highlight what the question is trying to say. And it's untimed. So don't feel like you're in a rush. In fact, you can stop, you can leave, you can come back in. So however you feel, you need to get through that. You've got that flexibility of working on it. If you want to try to sit down and knock it off all at once, I'd recommend setting aside about 2 hours. I took mine in about an hour. Well, I'll explain that as we get into things here. Relax. Try to do it at a time where you feel like you're not going to be interrupted by anybody. But be prepared to research. Don't get overly anxious. Don't get in a hurry or anything like that. Just be ready to go through that rule book and find the answer. Give me a call or call a friend. and say, I'm not quite sure where to go for this rule. Help me out, and we'll do that. And what I'll show you here is most of those true false questions come straight out of the rule book, verbatim. And sometimes they'll add a word, or sometimes they'll leave a word out that'll make that statement false. So keep that rule book handy there, and you're going to be good. Okay. Know how the rule book is laid out. You're going to see a question, and if it's asking about the equipment on the field, the equipment that coaches use, things that the state can authorize, uniforms, that first meeting when you're talking about rule changes, they like talking about new jerseys all the time. And all that's in Rule 1. You can see questions about the field. So Rule 1 is a good starting point to try to find those answers. Definitions. Now, I intentionally put that all in caps. That's Rule 2. Rule 2 is your friend. You're going to find all kind of information in there, and all the rules eventually are going to tie back into Rule 2 for the definitions. So those are really important. That first night, I emphasized the whole notion about using the proper language. You're going to find that in Rule 2. So, make sure you feel real comfortable about that. Any questions about, periods, clocks, extending a period, not extending a period, game clocks, play clocks, when do they start, when do they stop, those sorts of things. You're going to find that in Rule 3. And for whatever reason, they decided we're going to put substitutions in there too. So that's where you find those. Live ball, dead ball, ball out of bounds. You can find those in Rule 4. Downs, possession, change of possession, who has the ball at the end of a penalty. You're going to find that in Rule 5. Kicking game, what I started getting into on Sunday night. Fair catches, that's all Rule 6. Passing, snapping the ball, handling the ball, formations, you're going to find those in Rule 7. Scoring, touchbacks, Rule 8. Player conduct, non-player contact. So that's fouls and penalties. They're all gathered there in Rule 9. All those fouls and penalties and things like that you're going to find throughout the rule book, but then they all kind of reinforce those in Rule 9. Penalty enforcement, you're going to find that in Rule 10. Fundamentals are important. So if you haven't looked at those yet, those are on page 84. They start on page 84. The signals will be important, and actually we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Those referee signals are on page 96. Granted, you all aren't going to be referees more than likely starting off the season here, but it is important to understand what those signals are. And then when all is, you're not exactly sure where to go to the index. It's there in the back of the book, got it in a nice convenient place. That can be a good starting point. So as you read the question, just kind of think about where you might find that there in the rule book. And then that could be the phone call that you make too. Hey, I've got a question here that's talking about whatever. I can't find it in the rule book. Help me out. And then we'll get you there.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah.
That fundamentals, you're going to find, at least I had 3 questions that came out of the fundamentals. So
okay.
If you can't find it and all the rest of them, reread that 2 or 3 pages on fundamentals, and all of a sudden might go, oh.
Yep. So again, I showed this at our Zoom meeting last week. So you got Rule 7 here, talking about what's happening at the snap. And then It talks about your signals and your yardage. They're in bold. And again, that information you're going to find again in Rule 9. So you can find some of these answers in a couple different places. Okay, so this is a screenshot, and I'll just be open for those that wind up watching this video. This is what popped up when I took the test. So I'm going to walk you on through it. So the first question is the basic spot is the previous spot unless Rule 8-5-2C applies for a foul by A or B when the run ends behind the line of scrimmage where there's no change of possession. So true or false. So that's a lot of words right there. But just kind of take a look at this thing. And it says basic spot. Okay, it kind of sounds like a definition. So you can go into Rule 2 and you're going to see something that talks about basic spot. And oh, by the way, in Rule 2, it's going to send you to Rule 10-4. So it also kind of sounds like an enforcement. And I tell you what, when you do that, the words are going to look very familiar. So just kind of read the words, look at what's in the test, and then click on true. Or if you think it's false, click on false. You'd be wrong, but click on true. Okay? All right. Okay, so effective 2024, the entire body of the number shall be a single solid color that clearly contrasts with the body of the jersey. Sounds like a uniform, so you go to Rule 1. And you go under, player equipment, it's going to talk about jerseys, and it's going to talk about 2024, and there you go. Horse collar is enforced as a live ball foul. So that sounds like player conduct. You can also look under Rule 2. I'll tell you right now, you're not going to find it under Rule 2. You're definitely going to find it in the index. It's going to send you into Rule 9. It's going to show you where in Rule 9 that it is. Now, this one's going to be a little bit tricky because it does not actually say it's a live ball foul. But when you look at the signals that it says that you need to give, it's not showing the dead ball signal that would need to be given. So you just kind of, deduce that, oh, it must be a live ball foul. So it's a live ball foul. Okay. By state association adoption, the use of instant replay is allowed only for postseason games. So again, why is that a rule? What's that sound like? Where would I find it? Kind of sounds like equipment. No, because it is. And you're going to find that in Rule 1. And there's a section in Rule 1 that has a table of all those state adoptions that are allowed. Just look at those, and you're liable to find this in there. And the likelihood is pretty high. Okay, field of play is an area within the sidelines and the goal lines. So it kind of sounds like a field description. And you go into Rule 1, and you're going to find that in there. Also kind of sounds like a definition. And you're going to find that there as well. So just kind of look at the question. You might be tempted to answer it right away. Sometimes you run the risk of, well, I thought I knew the answer, and I got that one wrong. May not be a big deal, but if you wound up with 78%, then it turned out to be a big deal. So take your time. It's open book. Go find it in the book, and you're going to do well. And then if you need to take a break, then you can save it, leave it, come on back, and then pick up where you left off. Any questions on taking the test? The sooner that you start doing it, the better off everybody's going to be. But again, be sure that you're ready to take it, and we're here to help. Okay, back to the administrative kind of things. We're talking about blocks. So I know that I'm going to New Jersey for a niece's wedding in October. So we've already got the rooms reserved and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I'm leaving on a Thursday and coming back on Sunday. Uh, so that's a Thursday, Friday game that I'm not going to be available for. And Jason needs to know that like right now, or the sooner that he knows, the better. What happens when he starts putting together the schedule? You can imagine how complicated that can be, where you've got 10 to 12 games and you're trying to find anywhere from 7 to 9 officials, maybe more, to put on those games. So Dragonfly will kind of put together a rough pairing of officials, and then Jason does the fine tuning of all that. What messes things up is if Dragonfly thinks that you're available, and now all of a sudden, I'm telling Jason, hey, I got to turn down the game because I'm going to be in New Jersey for a wedding. Well, we can avoid a whole lot of stuff if I put that block in advance. You're going to find out that you got a work thing that's going to get you out of town, or some other kind of family commitment, something like that. As soon as you find those out, enter those in. There's always going to be something that's going to come up at the last minute. Jason can handle those. Don't make a habit of that. If you know you're going to be gone, put in that block. It makes life a whole lot easier for everyone. You can block schools. In fact, in some cases, you need to block schools. I don't know how old a lot of y'all are. If you graduated from a particular school within the past 5 years, don't officiate that game. There were instances here in the state where, well, I'll get into number two. Do you have relatives at the school? My granddaughter plays tennis at Huntsville, so I'm not officiating any Huntsville games. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where all of a sudden a call went in the direction of Huntsville, and the opposing coach is sitting there going, well, of course he's going to call for that because his granddaughter goes there. It just, we don't need that. So we're just going to go ahead and block it. David Bell, who's the head of all the officials here in the state, he used to be in our association. He was kind of like the #1 official in the state, for all that matters. He could never do a Grissom game because his wife is one of the secretaries there, one of the administrative people in the front office. So it's those kinds of things that we want to avoid, any kind of perception that we might favor one school over another. Rick, did you try to chime in on something?
No, you just do it. And if you got a question, you go, ask somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ask it real early so you can block it if you have to.
Yeah. Yeah. We can talk you through the whole thing there, try to figure out if there's an issue or not. And even my grandson now is going to be playing for Hampton Cove Middle. So I just put that block in. So there we go. Okay. You can also block hours. I'm not going to talk about that. Jason and I had a discussion. He's going to talk you all through that on Sunday. There's some tricks in putting in those hours. But if you say that you can't get off of work until 5 o'clock or something like that, I'm going to leave that up to Jason to talk to you about how to best do that. Now, what I will do is I'll show you how to block dates in Dragonfly. Oh, that's Jason, by the way. You're going to meet him on Sunday. He's the guy on the left. No. Okay. All right. So put this in the way. Okay, so this is on the laptop what it looks like. You go down to your assignments, you click on that. This comes up. These are the blocks that I've got in here already. And then you create a block. So that's where that one shows up. On the app, well, where's my app? Here we go. On the app down at the bottom is a thing called blocks. You click on that, and then here's all my blocks I've got in already. And there's your create block down there. And then you'll get a screen that looks like this. And I'm just looking at the availability one. You have a distance one. I don't know if Jason wants us to use that. He'll talk to you about that on Sunday. There's one that says conflicts. That's where I put in the ones on this for the schools. You can put in a one-time block. That's probably the better ones to put in. Or there can be a recurring one. I'll leave that to Jason to talk you through that whole process. But it's real simple. So I won't be available from such and such a date. It automatically puts in 8 o'clock in the morning. And then you put in the end date, and it automatically puts in 10 o'clock. You can change these times. Maybe you're getting back from a trip. You'll be back at 1 in the afternoon. So you could be available for a 4:30 middle school game or 5:30 to be there for a varsity game, something like that. So that's how you can put those blocks in right there. Just enter the data, hit save block, and it's in. On the app, when you hit that create block, you get something that looks very similar. You get the start date, end date, start time, end time, hit save block, and you got that in there. So it's pretty simple to do. It's easy to do, and it makes a whole lot of difference when you do it. So take a look at that. And again, if you think you have some days coming up this season that you're not going to be available, go ahead and put those in. And actually, I would also include Saturdays in there. Our association typically doesn't do Saturday games. But we'll figure out the contact information about the person that tends to do those rec league games, and we'll get you in touch with them if you're interested in doing those. But there could be a weather conflict. There could be a game that goes beyond midnight, and we have to stop the game. That may wind up having to be played on Saturday, and the crew that did the game on Friday might not be available on Saturday. So if you think you're going to be gone on a Saturday, put that block in anyway, just to be safe. Okay. Any additional questions?
Yeah. Bob, one thing on blocks. Remember things like wife's birthday, anniversary? That could get you in trouble at home if you forget that, unless you work it out with your spouse.
Yeah, you'll figure that out. My wife is happy to see me out on a Friday night. That gives her time to kind of relax at home and not have me bother her, and she can watch whatever she wants on TV. So whether it's her birthday or anniversary, although those don't conflict with football for me, so I'm kind of lucky there. But yeah, that's a good point. Think about those things, talk it over with your spouse or whomever, and figure out if that's something that is going to be an issue or not. Read up on Rule 7. I'm going to talk about the passing game, and I'm going to set up some rules of engagement too to help minimize some of the distractions and side discussions and things like that. I want people to raise some issues, but if it's not relative to Rule 7, I'm just going to write it down and I'm going to hold it until the following week. That way we can keep the meeting running kind of smoothly and all that sort of stuff. And the same with y'all. Any kind of questions you've got, get them to me and I'll address them on Sunday, either to the group or I'll make sure that I address them to y'all individually. But after the meeting, Jason and Tracy will put you all in a room, more so for introductions and things like that, and have us start getting faces and names together so we can start working with y'all. So any other questions, or maybe I'll turn off the recording here, and then if there's any other questions, then we can hit those.